Welcome to the Student Sector Spotlight podcast, brought to you by the Humber Outreach Programme.
Hi, hello everybody watching or listening again back to another episode of the Student Sector Spotlight podcast. I think this is episode 5 now, and we've had some wonderful guests on, and we've got an even more wonderful guest on today with Matt Johnson, who is a local marketeer in the Humber region, and as of a couple of years ago started his own marketing agency called Different Resonance. So what's your background?
I went into A-levels at the sixth form college that was attached to my school, and I did maths, English language, business and economics. Yeah, so dropped the English language after the first year, so just got an AS level in that. And then went on to university where I started on like a very generic business management. I think it's called management, but as part of the business school you do that common first year. So I covered accounting, HR, economics and marketing. And it was when I was doing the marketing module that I went, oh yeah, this is the bit I enjoy. This is the part that I like. Yeah. So then spoke to the university about switching degrees, because I would have still done the same 4 courses if I'd have been on marketing or management, hadn't lost out on anything. So yeah, then switched over to the pure marketing degree. But it came with, as did the original management, came with some work experience partway through a year on placement as well. So got that kind of hybrid of both there.
So was it 4 years then?
Yeah, so started in 2014, graduated in 2018, and then a year in the middle that was spent out on placement.
Did you do, when you was on your placement then, was that one place, or did you move around? Or
no, it was one place. It was with the UK City of Culture team. So during whole 2017, time was just lined up perfectly. So I started with them in like June 2016, I think, in like the whole run-up prep, all that kind of stuff. Then was meant to finish September 2017 and come back to university, but they said would I stay on part-time, so I fitted it around studies until the organisation disbanded in March 2018. I was there.
What an opportunity. That is timing, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah, and to be honest, that when I heard the announcement about City of Culture, I did kind of look at the dates and think, oh wow, that could line up quite nicely with university, and just happened to reach out through the careers team at the university. I just went and spoke to the guys there, and they knew some connections at the City of Culture team, got them in to come and chat to me about what a placement year might look like, what I'd want. And then they went away, kind of made this placement program, and then came back and opened it up for interview for anyone who wanted to apply, really. Picked up little bits of experience here and there, like internships over the summer, but to do it for an extended period of time and actually be able to get your teeth into it in like a completely different way. Did internships, and they were really useful because you get like, what is it, like 9 to 12 weeks of just working on something to be part of a project. So then take that next step and be on something for probably 16 months, my original full-time contract.
Wow.
So it's just a completely different way of thinking, and you get into the rhythm a lot better. And the role I went for was like a team assistant role, so I was kind of initially meant to be assisting the team and helping other people deliver the marketing, but because I was there for so long, I ended up delivering my own projects and that kind of thing. So by having that time to bed yourself in, get to know people, showcase what you could do, that's how I got that level of opportunity, really.
You graduated in 2018, you said?
Yes.
And then what was your sort of path after that then?
After that, it was straight into freelancing.
Really? Straight in, boom.
Yeah, so there was a bit, well, when you look at the CV, it says finished university, went into freelancing, but there was a bit of and and ahhing. So off the back of 2017, a lot of people were saying to me, you will not get a job like this. People quite high up were saying, we've worked towards jobs like this for our whole career, and you've had it as your first job. Like, anything else is going to be pretty odd compared to this. And I think I'd probably, with my internships, time spent at 2017, I had a couple of years of marketing experience under my belt by the time I'd actually left university.
Yeah.
I've said to people since, but for me, I think the term graduate actually was restrictive, because a graduate is a set type of person who might not have done a sandwich course, who might not have had internships. Like I say, I had 2 years experience. I felt like I'd gone beyond that graduate title, but because I was coming out of university, I was being offered graduate jobs. And I remember speaking to one person, the role was very much a team assistant role, and it was like, when will I actually get to do some of the marketing? And they said, it'll be a couple of years. And I was just thinking to myself, I've done my couple of years. I'm ready to get into marketing. A little bit of looking for a job. And then eventually I just thought, do you know what? I've said since probably sixth form or before sixth form even that I want to run my own business. And I'm coming out of university, no responsibilities, nothing, particularly daunting in terms of financial responsibilities. Why don't I just give it a go, see how it can go? I knew I'd lived off student finance, as long as I could earn enough to give me the amount that student finance gave you.
Yep.
And I knew it was possible. So yeah, then just decided, right, let's go for it, and haven't looked back since, really.
So you went straight into freelance in 2018, and then did you start the agency in 21?
Yeah, so it was April 21. But yeah, that came about because the growth from freelancing, long-term ambitions, bit more security in a limited business than there is from freelancing. And also, when you're kind of looking at mortgages and things like that, you need so many years accounts. So you're kind of thinking, get that switch in nice and early and then get the couple of years accounts under your belt so you've got something to show to the mortgage people. There's been a slight change in services, but I'd say it's not because of the switch from freelance to limited. I was probably going to make that evolution anyway. That timing just sat nicely with me kind of realizing I wanted to do a bit more strategic work than social media management work. But yeah, it's essentially it's the same thing for people who are new to me. I just go under a business name now. When you're self-employed, running a business, that kind of thing, there's lots of different bits and elements that come into it that you don't have to think about as a general employee. So, like tax returns and all that kind of fun stuff that just gets sorted if you just go into like a normal employment job. And like say, looking at mortgages, most mortgage providers will ask for 2 years accounts, full accounts, and they need to be good accounts to get the lending. Whereas with a job, you can walk into a job, and as long as you've got a pay slip or a contract, you can use that. So it's different kind of things there that influence the decision as well.
Is much changed in terms of your day-to-day, like how you work from being freelance into the business?
I would say probably not. Lots has changed, but not because of the change from freelance to limited business. I would say it's just over time things changed, don't they? So when I started out, my rates were ridiculously low. I'd have probably needed about 20 to 30 clients just to get a decent living. Whereas now, the way I structure things, I need about 6 to 10 clients to really progress. We do a little bit more project work now. So I work with a lot of subcontractors, videographers, photographers, that kind of thing, to deliver bigger projects, one-off project work, which I didn't really do when I first started out. When I first started out, one of my clients was actually the legacy company of Hull 2017, which was absolutely cultured. And essentially, because I had the understanding of how their systems worked and what they did and where things were stored and that kind of thing, I was there for 9 months, a couple of days a week, just providing marketing support to them. And a lot of my clients were like that. It was more like marketing support for something that they were already doing. Whereas now the client base is very much leaning on, we're going in to make a difference to what they're doing rather than just supporting what they already want to do. Much more strategic, helping them SMEs that owner operators, so they work in a certain sector and they know how to do what they do, but they don't know how to do marketing. So bringing in somebody to deliver that.
For any of the students that are listening that are maybe business minded, I guess, that might start as a freelancer and want to transition into, starting a limited company, I guess, you're talking about mortgages and that kind of thing. This is stuff that I guess a lot of students don't get to hear about quite a lot. So in the way that you factor that in terms of getting a pay slip, you're paying yourself as an employee so that you can then at some point take that pay slip and be like, this is how much I make.
I do pay myself. But what you'll find a lot of business owners do is pay themselves through what they call dividends. So at the end of the year, you look at how well the business has done and then determine how much you're going to pay yourself backdated off that. So a lot of my pay will come through dividends, which as a normal employee you wouldn't see. You would just get a pay slip. It's just normal. But I do still get pay slips, yes. National insurance contributions, student loan repayments, all that kind of stuff still happen.
I guess there's certain skills that you need to have, maybe not qualifications, but skill sets you need to have to be the kind of person that would be a freelancer. Is there anything that you think is valuable for somebody thinking about being a freelancer to have?
One natural subject is business studies. A lot of schools and colleges offer that, so I would definitely say have a look at that. And again, whatever specialism you want to be freelancing or running a business in, I think anything that pushes you ever so slightly outside your comfort zone is a good thing to do. When you are a freelancer or sole trader or whatever term you want to use, you have to wear a lot of different hats. I work in marketing, so marketing's a core business function as well, so it's slightly different. But let's say you were an engineer and you're really good at making widgets for a certain product, and you had your own workshop and you were making widgets. Well, you still have to run all the different business functions. You have to be aware of your accounts, even if you're paying an accountant. You still have to be able to market yourself and get yourself out there. All that kind of normal business function, you have to be able to do all of them. And the chances of you being an expert or confident in all those areas are very, very slim. So anything that gives you that experience of trying something new or pushing yourself is always good. Anything that makes you have to stand up and present and pitch and that kind of stuff, people hate it. When I was at sixth form, I was one of the head students, so we used to have to stand up in front of parents, governors, teachers all the time and present. So by the time I got to university and they were saying, oh, we're going to do some group work, everyone else is moaning and disappointed that they're going to have to stand up in front of everyone and scared. I wasn't bothered. I was like, well, I've stood up in a room full of 300 adults before, so what's 20 students to me,
Yeah.
You start to push yourself, and then when you get into the world of business and people are saying, oh, do you want to come to this networking event? You're going to have to stand up for 2 minutes and tell us all about what you want to do. I mean, yeah, fine, I'll go do that. That's not a problem for me because I've done it 20 times already. And so you need that kind of confidence to push yourself. And then something around communication as well. I took English language because, again, I wanted to take one of the Englishes, but didn't really like literature, so took language, and it tied into marketing quite nicely. But if you've got some kind of experience, whether it's like media studies or English language or something where it gives you some opportunity to learn how to communicate effectively, I think that again is another really good one to look at as well. You have to be able to sell yourself. If you're lucky enough, people will do that for you. If you're very good at what you do, people will tell other people. But to start off with, you've got to get yourself in front of people and sell whatever it is you can offer.
Obviously, it worked really well for you doing a degree, particularly having that experience in the middle by being employed by City of Culture. But if you were maybe somebody that was specifically looking at business, do you still think a degree is the way forward, or do you think apprenticeships are a better route, or do you think it just depends?
I think it really does depend. One of the things that if you end up at the right university and it's got a good ecosystem there a lot of universities support entrepreneurship in some form. Hull University had the Enterprise Centre when I was there, so you could go in there and speak to somebody about setting up your own business, which I did on several occasions on several different ideas I'd had. They have little challenges, all that kind of stuff. I think there's a programme nationally or internationally called Enactus or something like that, which is all about it's quite an entrepreneurial kind of society that some universities get involved in. And I interviewed a guy who'd gone to Lincoln Uni. I can't remember what he studied, but he said the course was, he said, never used whatever I learnt on the course. But all of his free time he used to spend in the Students' Union talking to other people and starting businesses and creating businesses. And actually, it was one of those businesses that ended up being his business today. So it's just like little things like that where you've got that community of people all your age who, if you can find the right community there, there'll be other people who are thinking the same way. So you can play around and test and try and fail and succeed and all that kind of stuff. Now, that's not to say you can't do the same on an apprenticeship. I think just university kind of life, because you're not always in lectures, lends itself a little bit more to that. Whereas apprenticeship, you've got that experience of being in a business as well, especially if you get an apprenticeship with quite a small business where it is very much owner operated. You can see the owner, you can see what they get up to, you can learn from them. Potentially, if you've got a good mentor within that organisation as well, there's opportunities there that you wouldn't get at university. And then there's obviously the idea of going straight in. If you know what you want to do and you're really good at it, yeah, definitely. I know a few people who didn't go to much beyond sixth form or A levels and started businesses and are succeeding still, so several years later. So there's nothing to say you couldn't jump straight in either.
Yeah, there's definitely multiple routes. I actually spoke to Rich Sutherland on this podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he was a big advocate actually for university, and similar to what you've said, in that you meet so many different people and that kind of worldview can be really impacted by being at university that you maybe wouldn't get in other routes. But like you say, many different routes. And for anyone listening, I will put links to I'll put a link to Hull Uni's business school and to a couple of apprenticeship sites in the area where you can look into apprenticeships as well. What do you think are the pros and the cons for choosing to either start your own business or specifically freelance?
The pros are that you have much more control over what and when and why you do things. When people hear that who haven't come across freelancers before, they tend to think that means you just go on holiday whenever you want. And there are plenty of people who are what we call digital nomads, where they just disappear and work from wherever they want in the world. And that's great for them, not for me, but they love it. But you've got that freedom. Then again, with the way we've seen the world of work change in the last few years with COVID, that freedom might actually be afforded to you in a real job as well now. So I say real job, like freelancing isn't, but you know what I mean. The other pros as well is that you're not limited. You could be the next Elon Musk, Bill Gates. There is no limit. Whereas when you go into a job for a certain time, that's your wage, that's what you're going to get. Unless there's some kind of bonus incentive scheme, maybe if you're in a sales job or something like that. But there's quite restricted in what you can achieve in terms of short term. The cons of freelancing are that everything is on you. You have to make the money. You have to make sure the accounts are right. Make sure you've got all your legal documents in place. You are open to quite a lot of risk. And that is one of the big differences between freelancing and being a limited company. If, for example, you were to make a mistake and a client was to come after you, as a freelancer, anything you earn is liable to be taken or sued for or whatever. So if you've got a car, you've got a house, whatever, that's all there to be taken. Whereas if you're limited, they can only take what's in the business. So only what the business earns can it come after. If, like me, when you're freelancing and you set up and you had a little Ford Fiesta on the drive and that was it, if you go freelance, that Ford Fiesta could be taken off you if you made a big mistake. Whereas if you're limited, that can't be touched. The cons of freelancing are that you are more exposed to that risk and that you are responsible for absolutely everything that happens in that business. So when it's dry and there's not much work coming in, you don't get paid. But like I say, the positive of that is when it's flourishing and you're getting loads of work, you get paid a lot more. So it's the pros are literally the opposite of the cons in the case of freelancing, I would say.
And I guess you need to be a certain type of person, as with any kind of job, I guess, to go into this area and to choose to be a freelancer. And like you say, a lot of organisational skills, certain level of confidence in being able to stand up and present, but also network and talk to the right people.
And some industries lend itself more to freelancing. So your creative sectors,
absolutely,
much more prevalent with freelancers. Because the work is project based. If you spoke to somebody in the arts, they probably know tons of people that are freelancers. Whereas if you go into like accountancy, they probably don't know as many people who are freelance because they all work for an organisation. Depending on what industry you're in, it might be that to get the job you have to be freelance.
And you are based in C4DI, which is obviously a really good business hub to be in. Do you enjoy working in that environment?
C4DI, for those who don't know, it's a community called the Centre for Digital Innovation, and it's on the Fruit Market. But yeah, so the great thing about here is that there are lots of people here, lots of connections. When I first started out, I looked at different co-working spaces, and like a couple of them, there was only me in it, and I was like, as great as this would be, because I'd have a huge office all to myself, it's the part of co-working that I'm after. It's really good from that point of view. There's plenty of people in here. It's very rarely quiet, which some people like, some people don't like. But yeah, in terms of the students, they do have some good connections. So they're part of what we call Barclays Eagle Labs. That's a national network of co-working spaces like this around the country. So they can tap you into things like that as well. Barclays Eagle Labs run events that are virtual and in person, which are to do with tech, innovation, founders, all that kind of stuff. They've got like female founders, BAME founders, that kind of stuff for people who they fit. I'm part of a group called the Hey Marketing Network, which essentially is the old Chartered Institute for Marketing events that happen at the university. So if there is anybody out there who wants to get into marketing or maybe wider business, keep an eye out for them. The next event will be in October, I think, this year, and another one in November, and they'll be on sustainability in marketing and AI in marketing. But they're free to attend. If it's a student from the business school wanting to come along, then speak to Peter Andrews, is the person who looks after that. He signs up students. But if you're not a student from the business school, you can just sign up through Eventbrite. But they're free to come to, and we have probably a 50-50 split of students and professionals. It's always good to get alongside, because I remember I used to go to the old version of these before I started helping out run them, and somebody there I was at an event one time and they came up to me like, what is it you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a student. Like, oh, right. I see you at all of these events and I've always wondered what it is you do. And then they offered me loads of help with getting my internship when I was looking for an internship. Now I ended up at 2017, but they brought 3 or 4 different companies to the table for me that I could have spoken to as well. So just by being at these events, you don't know who's there, who you're going to meet, who you're making an impression on. So yeah, that's one way to get into the business world. It's at the uni as well. It works quite nicely.
Yeah. The events are based at Hull Uni as well, are they? These events, yeah.
Yeah, so for the foreseeable, we're going to be at the uni in the business school up on the business lounge.
I'll put the links to these underneath the description of the video on YouTube and on Spotify, so people can look at the events. And I'll also put Matt's information, his LinkedIn and different Resonance website and social medias on there as well.
One key skill I think a lot of businesses are looking for at the moment, and it's a very hard skill to showcase, is creativity. Creativity in any form, whether it's like problem solving, if you're like into your maths and economics and that kind of side of things, or in marketing, creativity is a bit more obvious. It's new ideas, that kind of thing. But creativity, I think, and especially with all this talk of AI and what its impact is, creativity is something that we've got over it and probably will have over it for quite a while. It's like somebody said about the ones where they're writing the songs in the style of Drake or whatever. Like Drake might decide to come on next month and do a choral album. AI is not going to think to do that. AI is just going to repeat what he's already done. So creativity is where we can set ourselves apart, and I think a lot of companies are looking at. And then the other thing was with regards to freelancing, self-employed and what have you. My dad was somebody who had a career for life. He was in the fire brigade, that kind of 30-year plus career, and he doesn't get this world of running my own business and stuff. And I remember he came up to me one time and he was like, I saw this on social media and it's the first thing I've understood about running a business. And it was this graph and it was just up and down, and it was like, worried about having too much work, worried about not having enough work, worried about having too much work, worried about not having enough work. And he said, you're either in one of them 2 states. You're either worried about having too much on or worried about not having enough on. It is true when you speak to other freelancers, you're either feast or famine. You've either got lots on and you don't know how to cope and manage your time, or you've not got enough on and you're worried about how you're going to pay bills and stuff. And you just constantly between them two. I've yet to meet someone who's just found that constant 12 months of just perfect level of work. But yeah, it's something you've got to prepare yourself for, because like I say, compared to a normal job, you will have times where you're busy, but at least you know you're going to get paid. And when you're quiet, you're still getting paid. It doesn't matter that the business is quiet. So it's a tough one to manage. But if you go into freelancing, everyone else will be able to relate within that freelancing world and support you with it mentally.
And that's, I guess, why it's nice to be in a place like C4DI when you have other people around you that are, you can get advice, or you can just go and moan for like the afternoon or whatever.
100%. So yeah, just having those people around, trying to find a network of like-minded people. Really, if you're getting a job, there's at least going to be one other person, the person that's employed you. Generally, there's more than just the 2 of you. There's quite a few of you that you can bounce off, share things with. Whereas when you're freelance or self-employed, it can be just you if you don't find that community. So getting into a space, or it's like even like your independent shop businesses, like getting into like a Trinity Market, Paragon Arcade, Fruit Market area, you've got other people who are doing the same thing on the same journey that can support you there. So yeah, find your little community and make the most of it.
Great advice. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been wonderful.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been great to be on the podcast.